indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for the respectful support of our flag, our nation, the bloodshed, and those who have served to protect us. My name is Audra Thompson. I'm the Vice President of Hogs for Heroes, and I'm here with my husband, Kevin Thompson, President of Hogs for Heroes. And from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for being here. I love gifting these motorcycles. And in a crowd like this, where I can look out and see so many family members who make it so often to all of these, we appreciate it so much. You can't even imagine how much that makes our hearts grow. But the cool thing about our giftings is that we always have new faces in the crowd. And so those new faces give us the chance to share with you this very unique work that we do here in Wisconsin. Hogs for Heroes is a Wisconsin-only nonprofit. It's been created by my husband and myself. We do this work here in Wisconsin for our Wisconsin veterans. And we do it on the side of jobs and life, and we do it in partnership with Kevin's brother, Craig, and his wife, Michelle. And I'll tell you what, we have a really simple mission. We raise money to buy Harleys for injured Wisconsin veteran riders. Period. We do this in an effort to help them heal. We're talking about men or women who were injured in the course of active duty and had a long-standing passion for riding and have returned home and are struggling. They're struggling physically, emotionally, psychologically. And for whatever is going on in their life right now, they can't have a bike in their life right now. And most of the time, it's financial for many. But our work is to help them heal. And we know that when you have a passion for something, and it's now a loss in your life, that makes moving forward a little harder. So we hope by connecting a veteran with their passion and gifting them a motorcycle that puts them back out on the road, finding those freeing, peaceful, and healing miles, finding that control back in their life, finding some pride and some joy that maybe has faltered, and more importantly, maybe finding that support, getting back into that rider community. And y'all know how big those rider arms are. They wrap themselves around you. And particularly when you're talking about veterans, motorcycle groups, organizations, and clubs, there's a strong brotherhood that many don't understand. But when you're in it, and you feel it, and you know it, then that's doing something for you as well. So by gifting that bike, we hope they find all of that again. I've said this many times over, but it's not just a motorcycle. That motorcycle is the tool by which they find that healing freedom again and begin taking care of themselves and doing more. When we started this, we thought we would be successful, quote unquote, if we could gift one Harley a year. So we came together in 2015, raised our first dollars, and actually had enough money in November of 2015 to gift our first bike, but waited until the spring. Nobody wants a toy you can't play with at Christmas time, right? So we waited. And we gifted that first bike in May of 2016. Remember what I said, our goal was one a year. We are standing here a little over 5 years later, ready to put number 21 on the road. And number 21 in 2021 has a really cool ring to it. Because not everybody's going to be able to claim that you're the number in the gift year, but we're happy to be doing this. We're gifting this bike today to Ashley Ferd. And Ashley is our second female. We wish we had more females in our family here, but it's a start, and we're moving more in that direction. It's not an easy thing to apply for our gifting. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of putting yourself out there and putting your story out into the universe and wondering what's going to happen from there. We feel that in our healing process, part of the gain that an individual experiences comes from sharing their story. So when they write it down, it becomes real and it's out there. When they give it to us, more people now know. But when we select an individual and we share that story with you, not only does it provide Ashley today that release of burdens, but it also inspires and supports others who are struggling and feel like maybe there is something they can do to help release those burdens. Talking about it, getting it out there, sharing your story. It's not easy to do. And I have all the admiration in the world for Ashley, who shared so bravely and so openly her story with us. And Kevin's going to talk a little bit more later about that story, but I want you to know that it's not just a motorcycle that people are getting. It's releasing those burdens and finding some support. We are thrilled to be gifting you this bike, and that we are here at number 21 is huge. But we don't get to number 21, and still one more to hit the road this summer, by the way. We don't get to that point without a few thank yous to be made. First, and most important, always goes to our military community. There are active duty members throughout our globe serving today, and some of them are in fact in harm's way. And they have brave families at home supporting them. So to those who are serving right now, we say thank you. To those veterans, and many of you are in the crowds today, we thank you and your families for serving alongside us, for being out there, for continuing to care for your communities and to support other veterans. We thank you. And to those mothers and those fathers, those husbands and wives, those brothers and sisters, the family and the friends who never saw their loved one come home. We respect you greatly, and we thank you for that incredible sacrifice as they paid that ultimate price in service to our country. Our second thank you, we got to do a massive shout out to the Brothers by Choice. Brothers by Choice. We are in their clubhouse. This is the first time we have been in any group's clubhouse. And for you to have all welcomed us in as beautifully as you have, as openly as you have, is really, really cool. And what a pad you guys have. This is pretty nice. They are putting together a donation lunch with the proceeds directed to Hogs for Heroes. So please, thank you for doing that, guys. Please eat up and share. That money is going to be shared directly with us. Our next shout out goes to Vandervest. This is kind of a cool story, but when we met Ashley, we didn't know her. But because we were at a same event, she knew exactly who we were. So as we were approaching her family dinner to surprise her that night, I could see the shaking, and I could see the tension, and she knew us, and she knew why we were coming. And there we were, telling her. So we sat and talked about bikes a little bit, and what she wanted, and what she was thinking about. And, you know, sometimes we put people on a bike who haven't been on a bike in a couple of years. Ashley had a bike. She learned to ride 3 years ago, and she bought what she could afford. You know how that goes. So it was a bike that gave her more problems than what she expected, that needed a few more repairs than what she expected, that limited her more than what she expected. So we chose to keep her on her healing path and get her a bike. And we talked about bikes, and she's like, you know what, I really want a green one. Okay? So we can think about a green one. We can find it. You know, bikes are pretty limited right now. But there was this one bike that she saw 3 years ago that captured her heart. And it just so happened to be sitting on the floor at Vandervest. So we sent her out to try a couple different rides, make sure she was getting the bike she wanted, and she knew. She came, she sat on that bike, and that was it. Deal. So we got her on that bike, and Vandervest and Green Bay were really awesome about stretching our dollars, throwing in a windshield for her, and helping us get her that bike to get on the road. So that is cool. But our last shout out and note of gratitude goes to all of you, because we don't get to stand up here and hand over keys without you. It takes all of us to make a difference. We can't do it alone. So that you come to our giftings time and time again, that you throw money in our jar, beautiful, that you buy our t-shirts, that you're here eating lunch with us. Those are the kinds of things that provide the fuel in our tank. Every penny of every donation you share with us goes straight to buying that next bike. So if you're feeling generous today, we'd love to have you support our next efforts. And when I say next efforts, we do have our next one ready to go, but we're also working towards 2022. And I can tell you your support has been amazing, and we're going to change a few more lives for sure in 2022. So, I am going to turn this over to Kevin, but I just want to say a special thank you again, because you being here today in really crummy weather does mean a lot to us. All right, Kevin Thompson, here he is.
All right. It's always a very hard act to follow, but my part of this presentation, as she said, is to introduce Ashley. And Ashley, well, for those of you who don't know her, because I got to tell you, this might be the highest percentage of family members and vets that we've ever had at a gifting, which is awesome. So I'm probably going to be telling many of you a lot of things you already know, but I think you might learn some things as well. So I'm going to have a chance to do that, and then we're going to give Ashley a chance if she would like to say a few words. And then the really cool part is we're going to go over and fire up that bike. Yes! It's going to be loud, folks. Cover your ears. So, as Hogs said, you know, when we started this, you know, we've just been making it up as we go, and that's the really cool part of it. But one of the things we learned very early on is telling the stories, how important it is, because we heard from the veterans themselves, from the recipients, what they got out of it. It is difficult, it is courageous to tell your story, but it feels good to get it out, to let other people know, and to know there are people who understand you and accept you. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Ashley's story. I'm not going to repeat it all. Hopefully you've all had a chance to see it. I mean, Odd works really hard on those stories, and we put it out on the web, and we have it in the emails. So I'm not just going to run through it, but I do want to hit some highlights. Obviously, as I said, we're here to talk about Ashley, but also we try to talk about themes that are very common to many veterans. Maybe not all, but many. And I want to stress, this comes from a civilian point of view. Audra and I did not serve. So one of the things we try to do is think about it as civilians. How can we help to gain understanding for other civilians of what our veterans have done for us? What does that mean to have served? Because it's not the movies, it's not the newsreels. This is real life. These are people. And so the theme that really struck me and when we got Ashley's application and the board reviewed is how tough it is to be someone who's an individual and really relishes being an individual and being their own person in a world that maybe that's not accepted at times, or is unusual or different from what others are doing. And being that individual, yet seeking community. And how do you find that balance? And so, you know, when I say being unique and an individual, I think you might have all seen Ashley signed up for the Army National Guard when she was 17 years old, still in high school. Not many people can do that or say that. And I don't know of any that I've met who at the same time can say that she was playing middle linebacker for the high school football team at the time. Think about that. That's badass right there. So after boot camp, she chose as an MOS to be a chemical operations specialist. It really spoke to her, the intellectual side of it, in addition to the physical, and she learned everything she could. She took every class she could, and she was good at it. But then it was time for deployment, and that's where things, sometimes in the service can get a little unusual. She never got to use that specialty. Instead, she didn't even get to be with her unit. She was deployed individually over to Afghanistan, to Bagram, and was assigned to an MP unit. So here she is now, young kid from Wisconsin in Afghanistan, which again, I can't begin to understand. Many of you in this room were there and can, but we try to wrap our heads around it. And now too, you're over there in the hellish situation, and now being asked to do something you weren't trained to do. She was assigned to convoys, convoy security, going out in the community, knocking down doors, finding insurgents, manning the gun on the striker. And she did it. And she did it well, in the middle of all that violence, all that death and destruction, which was brought home every day on base. Ashley would share with us that there was a service every day for those who had fallen. And she made every one of those that she could. That constant reminder. Yet she did it. She survived that deployment, served honorably. Then she came home. And as we've talked a lot about, and one of the things we've learned the most, you think, what could be harder than being a young kid in Afghanistan doing things that you never even thought of that you'd do in your life? What could be harder than that? Well, what's harder is coming home, having experienced that by yourself, and now you're back in a community where people don't understand, they don't accept, and you can't even really talk about it. But she did her best. And then she went on a second deployment to Iraq. This one was a little different. She was with more of a logistics unit, and she served again and got back home. In one piece physically, but a very different and changed person. Not one she necessarily liked. She was angry, she was upset, and couldn't necessarily talk to anybody about that or explain why. And so here we have somebody signs up at 17, 2 deployments, Afghanistan, Iraq, and is now back in Wisconsin. And she served 15 years. She was very good at it. She rose to the level of an E6 staff sergeant. That doesn't come easy. And in her words, she told us she loved it. And there's one of the big ironies, too, that we have learned about with service. She would love to have continued, but she couldn't. Her mental health just wouldn't allow her to go forward or to have another deployment. So she needed to separate from the service. And part of that reason was because while she was in, she couldn't talk about what was going on in her head. That irony of if you talk about it, well then you're going to be probably discharged. So you internalize it, you don't talk about it, and you try to deal with it. But she was home now, and that wasn't working very well. And this is part of the courageous part, folks, to get up here and talk to all of you about it and share this. She turned to drinking, she had thoughts of suicide, and even a couple of attempts. So she was trying to find that path that we had talked about, get on that healing path. How can I be myself in this new world? How can I be an individual, yet have that camaraderie in that community? Not easy. But one of the things she did find, she found she had a love of riding motorcycles. And many in this room understand that. And it was that perfect blend for her. If she could be herself, she could be unique, yet she could be part of something larger, that camaraderie, that community. And she rode for a while, then she decided in her way, in Ashley's way, well, riding wasn't enough. She's going to take the class because she's going to drive that bike. Took the class, passed it. In that desire to ride, she was going to find a way. So she had a 1998 Suzuki with some bad carburetors and a 2-gallon tank, but she did everything she could to get out and ride, and she joined CVMA. Vets Helping Vets. And trust me, we do a lot of diligence on our applicants and our recipients, and we talk to a lot of folks, and what we always heard is, Ashley's awesome. We just don't get to see her enough because she can't actually go on the rides because the bike won't make it. And that's where Hogs for Heroes steps in, because that's exactly what we look to do. Here we have a vet who's struggling and is on a path of trying to help themselves and help others, and motorcycling is a part of that. You couldn't personify or describe better what we're trying to do. So when our board reviewed that application, we saw, well, this is a no-brainer. Here's a great person, served our country, struggling, wants to get out there and ride, and is demonstrating that on a daily basis, but can't, because she wasn't in a position to be able to, afford that bike that would allow her to be a true part of CVMA and be out there on the rides and that camaraderie. So when we saw that, and we looked at what she is as a person and the path she had chosen, we're so glad that that path led to here today, and that our board chose her to receive that motorcycle and to put her on that. So ladies and gentlemen, Ashley Ferg.
Well, no pressure. I'm not much of a public speaker, but this is very overwhelming, and as some of the other recipients who are here can attest, it's a very overwhelming and humbling experience, and it still isn't real to me, but it's going to be in a short time. So, I really want to thank these guys. Holy cow. When they came to the dinner, there was only a couple words I could say, and they weren't very good words. But it's amazing, and what they do, we as veterans, we need support from civilians as well. And I know there's other veterans that have never got that support. So the support they're giving us and other veterans is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So super huge thank you to you guys. Super huge thanks. I want to thank my family, which everybody here is family, but a large portion of my actual family is here. And they did a super awesome job keeping the secret because they suck at it. So I really want to thank my sister and my brother-in-law. They knew first, so I want to thank those guys. I definitely want to thank my CVMA brothers and sisters that came out. That's awesome. That's a big deal to me. The CVMA it's an awesome organization because as a veteran, you want to help other veterans. So this is these two programs go hand in hand. So, and you guys heard a lot about my story. I'm not going to go over my story because that's enough. That's plenty. So, but I just am so thankful, and I appreciate each and every one of you and everything that you've done for me.
Cool. Yeah.
That was awesome, what we said. That is not easy, folks. But now we get to the fun part. So what I have here in my hands are the keys to that beautiful motorcycle over there. All right. And when I get done with my next 30 minutes-ish of talk, we'll let her start it. No, what we do now, for those of you who are new to this, it's a tradition we've come up with that has become very meaningful for us, is we've got several of our past recipients here. You see, got 6, I believe. And in the past, I've named them off and I've screwed it up, so I'm not doing that anymore, because then I get all kinds of crap for it. But what we do here, each of these recipients is here by choice to support Ashley and each other. Because once they get that bike, there's no strings attached. You can be part of the family and participate, and we know it's not easy. People have rode from all over the state, driven from all over the state. They have their kids here with them, a lot of activities going on. that they chose to be here, and that means a ton to us. So that's why we always try to involve all the recipients in each presentation. So what we do now is I'm going to take these keys and hand them to John, who is our fourth recipient, and the earliest, if you will, or the longest of the recipients here. We're going to go down the line to hand the keys to Ashley, then she's going to go over and fire up that bag. John? Let's go fire that up. All right, she's practicing this, folks. Here we go. All right, folks, that ends our actual presentation part, but we encourage everybody to hang out, have some food, have a drink, enjoy the camaraderie. Thank you again, Brothers by Choice, for hosting us, and I hope everybody has a great afternoon. Thank you.